And we are live in living color. I have all these old songs that play in my head, people. Um, Remember when all the shows had their own little theme song and music and what have you? Even the Flintstones had this jazzy, um, what theme? Yeah, man, those were the days. Yeah, I can name that tune in about three notes. When something came on, all I hear is boom, boom. I say, Wild Wild West. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, that's all I needed. Three notes. So how's everybody doing, people? I'm getting started. Hey, hey Facebook, hey YouTube, how y'all doing? I see everybody's in the house. See you guys are here on time. Just kind of goof off a little bit. Give a couple people slow tardy people a chance to get off their short school bus and get their behinds in class. Some of y'all are still doing homeroom, I guess. So how's everybody doing? I think we passed since I put Facebook on blast, I don't want to brag, but I think they're going to do a brother right now. So anyway, I see what I see. What's up, people? Oh man, this has been a fun week for me. So much fun, I just don't know what to do with myself. Anyway. How you guys doing? Some thumbs up, some how you doings and what have you. Yeah, right. You remember when we were kids and they used to have the romper room on? And at the end of the show, Miss Linda would hold up the little magic mirror and she would call names. I see Donnie and I see Jimmy and I see Timmy and I see Brad. I said, damn, she never called my name. So some of you guys I can see and some I can't. So for that reason and many more, I just don't call people out. Uh, some of you guys don't want to be on a subversive list with me, so I won't call you out. But anyway, how y'all doing, people? It's Thursday night. I know you guys are thirsting for it, and I'm ready to give it to you. So I don't know, folks. I'm gonna go ahead and get started, get in, get out, do our thing. Good evening. Welcome to the show. Thank you, as always, for spending your Thursday night with me. I always say that I'm truly humbled that you choose to spend, this couple hours with me. Before I even get started, I want to give a shout out, a serious shout out, and a little prayer, time to recognize the state of Texas. After Katrina, I made jokes that Houston became New Orleans West and Atlanta became New Orleans East. There are a lot of New Orleanians. I have a lot of family and friends in the Houston area. I have friends down in Galveston and over other parts of Texas. So when I think about 375 million or some crazy number or something crazy like that, 37 million, just put it this way, it's when it's 300 people, it's 300 too many. So whatever the ridiculous numbers are, I think it was close to 4 million people that were without power for days on end. Some of them as many as 4 days now, and they're still without power. Last I heard, they're down to about 375,000 people who still do not have power. So it's like living inside of a ice box. I know I've been in a place with no heat, and I felt like one of the ribeyes in the freezer, man, literally, not making jokes. So I know what they're going through, and I just want to say, let Texas know we with you, man. All my friends and family, my Facebook friends and family, I got you. I got you. Power slowly being restored, but I hear they're still having rolling blackouts, which means some people could get power now and they still have a blackout, which means they might be without power for 2 or 3 hours or 4 or 5 hours. So it's crazy. to add insult to injury, Texas governor, Republican, GOP or QOP or whatever he calls himself, he's blaming everybody but himself for what Texas is going through. On top of that, I saw people in line waiting on bottled water because they're having problems once the power goes out. Then that means the pumping station goes out, which means the water is no longer being purified. So I'm really feeling for him. I really, really am feeling for him. This idiot is blaming everybody but himself. But let me just kind of go on. My name is Hank Batiste, alias the Renaissance Man, also known as Rennie for short. I'm your host tonight, and the voices in my head are laughing uncontrollably. Sometimes we laugh to the point that we maniacally laughing, and I'm this far off from there. My show is called I've Got Something to Say, So It Must Be True. This week, we're starting to see the fallout of the impeachment acquittal and how delusional Donnie has hijacked the GOP, the QOP, the Trumpians, the Trumpies, the Trumpets, and so forth and so on. He refused to fade to black. I said last week that the impeachment trial was a huge waste of money and resources, and now we are seeing that. Stevie Wonder could see where we were headed with this thing. We knew they were trying to send a message, but it falls on deaf ear because he and some of his bottom feeders are feeling energized. They're feeling invincible. So now we're going to see who wins this civil war between Mitch and Trump. Tonight we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about some of the things that I told you that came true. We're going to talk about accountability and oversight. We're going to talk about whether no news is false news, and we're going to talk about why I'm proud to be a Democrat. Tonight's show is called Creole Powers. You heard it here first in Democratic accountability. So I got something to say. Let's omit the logic and do this. First things first, my Creole Powers. Last week, I didn't do my segment with my predictions. I've been trying to hold my show around 30, 35 minutes because I figure that's the most. If you guys give me 30 minutes, I'm going to try to get you in and get you out. I'm trying not to be like the Baptist preacher. And every time, I get a new inspiration, I throw in another verse and there's another 20 minutes of preaching. So sometimes I try to hold it to 30, 35 minutes, but sometimes I'll forget to say some things. And last week I left out my Creole Powers, and a couple people asked me about my predictions. So this week I'm going to talk about that. But I wanted to start talking about some of the predictions that I made that have come to fruition. They've come true. And now I always say you heard it here first, because I don't have a board of directors. I don't have a program manager who tells me you can't say this, so forth and so on. So I try to give it to you straight, no chaser. I pick subjects that I think are relevant, timely. I try to go out, research said subjects, and then I put together this show. And in doing so, I could say what I want to say when I feel like saying it. Now, when I start to hear CNN and MSNBC, they're talking heads or what have you, they use some of the things that I say, and I know my show has gotten more and more popular. Like I said before, YouTube has started to mix some of my shows in with, if you're on auto control on YouTube and you're watching one video and that video comes on, the next video is just kind of a potluck. So a couple of my videos have been thrown into the potluck. So shout out to YouTube for doing that for a brother. Um, unlike um, Facebook, Facebook wants you to pay for them to promote you or beef your shows or send it out to people. And all I ask is I got, I've trimmed my friend list, and my thing is, I know that some people are busy. I know some people are in other countries. I know some people um, have to work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not a good time. So simply because you don't tune into my show doesn't mean that I unfriend you. But I know my show has been getting more and more airtime and more coverage beyond my Facebook and my YouTube friends and family. So for that, I am grateful. Onward and upward. But when I hear the other indication of this happening is when I start to hear some of the things that I've said, 2 weeks, 2 months ago, now being parroted or being repeated by the CNNs and the MSNBCs, these people that are getting paid millions of dollars, and somehow they're following my lead. So write a brother a check, you, you could cash at me, no big deal. Um, Shit, send me a EBT card with $100,000 on it. I spend that puppy. Anyway, seriously though, since the failed coup attempt, I talked about how the domestic terrorists were treated in contrast to how the Black Lives Matters protesters, and that in of itself is a huge difference. Uh, Terrorist, a domestic terrorist versus Black Lives Matter protester. Someone is asking for equal rights and equality, equity. Somebody else is following the lie. These people are the reason that we still have National Guardsmen on the mall surrounding the U.S. Capitol. So the domestic terrorists, all these people that participated in this failed coup d'etat, they were treated with kids' glove versus the Black Lives Matter protests, how they were strong armed. So I talked about a little bit about that. I started talking about it the day after um, the insurgents, the coup attempt. So anyway, I hear other people starting to say it, and all I said was, and this is the thing, and it really makes me feel good when I hear them repeat this. What I said that I thought was most poignant, what I said that was most important was if people of color and specifically Black people were treated with the same respect and given the same latitude or the same that same respect. Respect is probably the most important word. If we were given that same respect that the domestic terrorists were given, then there would really be no need for police reform and policy changes. I submit that because police would routinely use less deadly force when encountering an unarmed a black man that they supposedly feared. One of the other things I told you early in this thing, I told you that Andrew Cuomo was grandstanding and covertly auditioning for the role of president, even though he was never in the race. When we first saw Cuomo, we saw him wearing an emergency management shirt and just speaking into a microphone. Then the next time we saw him, he's standing behind a podium. And then eventually he's seated behind a desk and behind a table with the flags surrounding him and trying to look presidential in what I call this makeshift Oval Office. All of my friends, um, that are from New York, they were up in our eyes about it, but I don't care. I call it what it is. It's straight no chase. I don't care. If you can't take it, get out the kitchen. I also told you that just watching it unfold, and the thing that struck me most was the one Capitol Hill police who was taking a selfie with these domestic terrorists. So I said some of them had to be in on it. Now we've seen 3 or 4 of them have committed suicide. So we don't know why they've done what they've done. Um, so we have to kind of play it by ear. Hold tight. I needed some of that Jeopardy music playing while I did that. Um, what I had to kind of do is I had to run and grab something that I forgot to set up. So here we go. Sorry about that, people. When you're a one-man show and you're trying to make sure that all of these things are right, I'm so busy worried about Facebook messing me up that I kind of did myself in that time. So I apologize. My battery started going low on my phone. It's time to get a new phone. So anyway, back to what I was saying. I said that some of the Capitol Hill police had to be involved because when I saw this guy taking selfies, and then when I heard the accounts of this cop on his radio calling for backup that never came, I said that some of them had to be involved in this. And it just makes sense that some of them would be Trumpers, Um, it just reaffirmed my suspicions and my claims. So I knew what was happening. Um, it made me angry because if any of those people that took their own lives, that was their way of dealing with this. Now, today, I heard that I think 3 or 4 cops have been suspended, and there are more that are under investigation. So we'll see what happens as this unfolds. And lastly, my sidebar. I had to throw this one in there. The woman from Texas who invaded or who participated in the failed coup d'etat and then went to Cancun, I found out that she went to the same resort that I went to for my birthday back in November. So I figured I'd throw that out there. And what brought it to the front of my mind was Tom Cruise. While the other people in Texas are sweating their balls off, well, not sweating, they wish they were sweating their balls off, while they're freezing to death, literally, Cruz decides to take a vacation down in Cancun, Mexico. So I think the people of Texas has some soul searching to do. I know it's a red state, but it's time that if this the way your elected officials are treating you, it's time for a change. Moving on. I said it first. Back in late spring, when there was still some ambiguity between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, Even though Biden was leading and was expected to be the candidate, Bernie had not conceded. If you remember back then, there was no campaigning allowed because of the pandemic. So Joe Biden had no way of talking to the people. Meanwhile, what incensed me was Downey used his daily briefings as a quasi campaign and an opportunity to speak to his base. Meanwhile, CNN gave New York Governor Andrew Cuomo a daily spot following Downey's delusional rantings and ravings, his rambling. This incensed me because I saw it as grandstanding. So I called it what it was. I said that there are 49 other governors who are having issues in dealing with this COVID thing who should be given an opportunity to voice their shortcomings in their respective states. What really pissed me off, and you know me, I always talk about the utmost of pissosity. What really pissed me off, because Chris Cuomo is Andrew's younger brother, he did these interviews after these briefings. And he talked about, well, big brother, it sounds like you want to be president. And he said, oh, no, Chris, I'm perfectly happy here being the governor of the state of New York. F out of here. F out of here. Meanwhile, in New York, my Facebook and my podcast family were getting angry at me because I called it what it was. So if you want to get in a race, get in the race and do it the right way. Don't try to come in the back door, because we hadn't come together as a party. And like I had been saying since 2017, I felt like Joe Biden was the antidote to bring down all of this hate that was Trump. So while all of this was happening, I saw Andrew for his lack of real leadership. How can you be leading the state if every day for 45 minutes to almost 2 hours, you're sitting in front of the camera, pripping, priming, and just showing out? I also knew people in the state of New York, people in Brooklyn, people in upstate New York, and what have you, who were standing in line for hours at a time waiting on the COVID test and then couldn't get one because the governor is on TV or the governor is traveling to DC to do this face to face with Trump, and he's doing all of these other things. He's doing everything but governing over his state. So I called them on it. And everybody thought, well, you just don't like Cuomo. Or get off of New York. And I heard all of these complaints. Now, fast forward, what we're starting to see is what I already talked about. I knew when they sent the USNS Comfort up there, the naval hospital ship, and they had nothing to do because there was not a real plan put in place. I knew that there were trucks, semi-tractor trailer trucks parked in emergency room parking lots in all of that cold weather with dead bodies, people that had expired. Now we're starting to find out that after he received all of these accolades, including he wrote a book and he received an Emmy for his daily briefings. Now we're starting to find out that he was lying. He was pulling a Trump. He was fudging on his numbers. And just like the guy that he supposedly hates the most, he's trying to intimidate people. So now he's being investigated for cover-up, intimidation, and corona padding of his stats, especially those people that were in nursing homes. In short, I think what he did was committed malfeasance of office. But While Andrew was grandstanding and trying to look presidential, New York suffered. This is the biggest difference between being a Democrat and being a Republican, because Democrats, they police their own. If this had been a Republican governor, then everybody would have just hushed hush just to hold on to power. When Dems fall from grace, there is no alternate universe for them to retreat or hide out in. Ironically, CNN gave Cuomo this platform to promote himself. Now CNN is the main news network who's reporting on his investigating and his troubles. Imagine if Fox did that with Fox and other, not just Fox, but if Fox and other conservative networks did that and held Despicable Donnie or Moscow Mitch or Kevin McCarthy or Ted Cruz or any of these other guys, imagine if they held their feet to the fire. There would have been no January the 6th, because they would not have become so emboldened. If you stump out a fire while it's still a campfire, it doesn't become this raging wildfire. And that's what we see time and time again with the Republicans. We enable them to keep them in power, and then it becomes this thing, this craziness, where they're bigger than God himself in their own minds. And that's the delusion. So if Republicans would take a page from the Democrats and instill some oversight and some accountability, we wouldn't have some of these problems that we have. In moving on. Meanwhile, the coup continues, and it's all Biden's fault. There's a beef that's brewing in the Republican Party, unlike anything we've seen since hip hop's West Coast, East Coast feud. What's happening is, on one side, we see Moscow Mish. He's trying to pull up moderates and some of the traditional Republicans, but he's also trying to hold on to those Trump publicans. And I stole that one from Chris Cuomo. So I'll give him his dap for that. He's trying to hold on to all of these people for his own selfish reasons. He wants to be the majority leader, plain and simple. McCarthy is trying to hold on. He's kissing the ring in other parts of Donnie's orange anatomy so that he could one day, now he's the minority leader in the House. If something happens and they get the majority in the House of Representatives, then you can look for them to exact their revenge for the 2 impeachments of Trump. Yes, everything is still predicated on this delusional lie that Donnie really won. Now, others are starting to say they realize that he lost, but in true QOP, not GOP fashion, Texas Governor Greg Abbott is blaming the state's power outages on everyone. He even blamed Joe Biden's clean energy proposals. He's blamed it on everybody. Now, what Biden proposed was replacing some of these outdated infrastructures and types of existing energy like oil, gas, coal, and what have you, with clean power. Things like sun and wind and solar panels and things of that nature. None of that has been implemented. None of that has been installed. But Greg Abbott had the audacity to blame it on them. He's blamed everybody, Biden, the energy company, even the Easter Bunny. He's even had the audacity to say that Texans need to learn how to fend for themselves and stop looking to government. If that's the case, then they don't need the governor. And right now, it's obvious that they don't need you. So Despite, and this is the other reason why I'm so proud to be a Democrat. No matter how angry they make me, no matter how much they flail and they fight blindfolded, no matter how much they tend not to unify, they hold themselves accountable. I think the last time that the GOP showed this much cojones and oversight had to be when they urged Richard Nixon to leave office and save the American people further embarrassment. What we're seeing now, folks, and I hate beating this horse, but I'm talking not just to the people in Texas, I'm talking to all of us, because what we have to start to understand is we have to stay engaged. And that's why I'm still doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm putting together this company, this nonprofit. We've got a bunch of people who go into politics. Their blind ambitions is to get as much power as possible, because with power comes money. It's a byproduct of power by any means necessary. We have the power to hold them accountable. If they don't hold themselves accountable, we have the power to remove them. And that's what we have to do. By Donnie escaping his impeachment, he has doubled down on this lie. And Mitch is forced to try to contain this this Trumpenstein monster that he created, enabled for 4 years. You understand? Remember when they first started, everybody thought he was a joke. Now they can't get rid of his behind. I had an analogy, but I'm not going to use it. I'll just say he's like a rash. Okay? Fill in the blanks. Moving on. Let's talk about my Creole powers right quick. The National Guardsmen, my first prediction. National Guardsmen are going to continue to occupy the U.S. Capitol until late spring. The tug of war, number 2, between the GOP and the QOP, between Mish and Donnie, between Mish and McCarthy, Mitch and Lindsey Graham, is going to continue through the midterm elections in 2022, unless more moderate Republicans grow a spine of cojones. Prediction number 3. Biden will start to double down and go big. He's going to meet more of his progressives more to the left. If he can't get bipartisan support, it makes sense for him to hold on to his own. So he's going to go big. He's going to get more and more radical in some of the things that he's trying to do. And then I really don't think he's even considering running a second term. So he can swing for the fences, folks. So he's going to double down. He's going to meet the progressives more on the left side, unless the Republicans start to negotiate in good faith and start showing like they want to pass some bipartisan laws. Makes sense. Number 4, if going big gets more Dems to support Biden's agenda, the Dems will increase the number of seats in their majority in both houses of Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate. So let me say that one more time. If going big gets more of the progressive, those Democrats that are less moderate to the left, onto Joe Biden's agenda, then what's going to happen is the American public is going to see the Dems as actually doing something. And they're going to win more seats. They're at least going to win back the seats that they lost in the House in 2020. But I think they'll do better. if things stay as they are now. Number 5, Creole powers. Slowly, operative word is slowly. Slowly, more and more of the QOP Trumpies will become disillusioned when they realize that Trump could give a FFSH about them. And they're the only ones whose livelihood and socioeconomic status is going to suffer. They're going to become more and more disillusioned when they realize they're the only ones who's being sacrificed. When you see Rush die and they talk to Trump because he was such a staunch supporter, and he says, yeah, and he used it as a segue to tell a lie again. He said, yeah, Rush believed that I won too. Not once did he say anything about, I know I'm no longer president, but I'd like to extend my warm wishes and my prayers to the people in Texas who are freezing to death. Not once. Not once did he say to those people who are dying of COVID, I know I'm no longer president, but at least some of the things that we started doing during my administration are starting to pay off. I see that the numbers are falling. Now, once does he exercise any of that humility or humanity? As they catch on, they will become more and more disillusioned. And this is going to be his Achilles heel. Number 6, as my show becomes more and more popular, you will hear more and more major news networks start to repeat, start to parrot, and start to say some of the things that I say. You're going to see them abandon some of those preconceived agendas, and you're going to see them coming more towards the true needs of the public. I always said that the worst thing in the world is 24-hour news channels. There's nothing that's that important that we need to hear about it 24 hours a day. Number 7, during this Biden administration, you're going to see more government accountability as it becomes the order of the day. Now, I saw one of Biden's White House interns was fired because he got into a shouting match with one of the news people. As accountability becomes the order of the day, you're going to see more accountability, you're going to see more transparency, and you're going to see more oversight. Remember, you heard it here first. So, folks, that's all I got for you tonight. Remember, as I always say, don't be so afraid to die that you forget to live on a purpose. I also say, and omit the logic. People ask me where that comes from. I said, don't expect it to make sense. Omit the logic and deal with it. So remember, you heard it here first. Go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, and click on the bell. Even if you watch me on Facebook, still want you to go to YouTube. I want you to subscribe, because what you can do is you can have a watch party on Facebook and you can watch me on YouTube as well. We need to get those numbers up, folks. Click on that bell. It'll let you know. It's supposed to let you know every time I go live on YouTube. I've heard mixed reviews about whether or not it works. It's always important. My name is Hank Batiste, alias the Renaissance Man, also known as Rennie. I'm your host. I got something to say. It must be true. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to set me up and shut me up. See you next week. Same Batiste time, same Batiste place. It's always important. Love, peace, and like your man, hair grease. Folks, have a safe weekend. Enjoy. Take care of yourselves. Do what you have to do. I'm out of here. Take care.
people. Here we go.